This is the RV Advisor Podcast with your host, Tom Alexander. Get all the latest information, trends, advice from experts, stories from the road, and more in the world of recreational vehicles. Now, here's Tom.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the RV Advisor Podcast. I'm Tom Alexander, and today our guest is from Vintage Camper Trailers. Vintage Camper Trailers. It is Paul Lacitinola. Paul Lacitinola joins us. Where are you today, Paul? Where are you located?
We are in Northern California. We're just outside of Sacramento.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. How's the weather out there in Sacramento?
Warm with capital letters.
Okay, well that's good. Well, we can't see you today, but that's okay because probably throughout this chat we'll see some of the campers and everything, and of course you can see plain and clear Vintage Camper Trailers. For those folks watching, for those folks listening only, again, it is Vintage Camper Trailers. Let's find out first off about the origin of Vintage Camper Trailers, but I think it's all in the title, isn't it?
Well, it really is, and the name isn't that creative because we had no idea what this was going to morph into when we started it about a dozen years ago. Yeah. And frankly, we just started a little newsletter that is now morphed into our magazine and our events business where we host big vintage trailer rallies.
And the magazine, is that digital only?
No, it's really primarily a print magazine. We started off as a little tabloid and newsprint and then moved into a regular high gloss, full color magazine. And we also offer it digitally, but primarily most of our subscribers still take the good old fashioned paper version.
Yeah. And I'm sure collectible. That, it's funny because I've got a closet over here on my right, and it's filled with old comic books and baseball magazines and music magazines, and I still love pulling them out and reading them, so maybe folks can collect the Vintage Camper Trailers magazine.
Well, they do, and it's something fun to just have in your camper with you, I mean,
Absolutely.
Even if that's as far as it goes, a lot of people just keep them in their campers, and yeah, we do have a lot of people that collect them and come in later into the game and ask, how many of the back issues can I get? So, like I say, most of our customers are print customers.
Gotcha. And tell folks where they can find the magazine.
Well, again, with all of our creativity, you can find us just about everywhere if you just look for Vintage Camper Trailers. And so it's vintagecampertrailers.com, and you can subscribe on there, get back issues. Same thing on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere. It's just Vintage Camper Trailers everywhere.
That's great. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the trailers. I'm looking on your Instagram page, and man, I'll tell you, there are some beautiful old classics here that are just a sight to behold. So we want to talk more about that. My guest today is Paul Lacitinola from Vintage Camper Trailers. This is the RV Advisor Podcast. I'm Tom Alexander. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hey, RV owners and those thinking about owning. Want to maximize the fun and minimize the hassle of buying an RV? You need GPS. It's Gigi's personal service. Our $350 package gets you me, the expert advice, and a host of outstanding services. Visit thervadvisor.com.
We are back on the RV Advisor Podcast. My name's Tom Alexander, and my guest is Paul Lacitinola from Vintage Camper Trailers. That name is just starting to, by the way, flowing off now. It's Lacitinola. I like that. I like the feel of that.
You're practically one of the family.
I'm telling you, man, it's a good, solid Italian name, and I'm right from the country next door. My heritage is Greek, so, it's close, right? It's close.
Exactly. Not
too far away. All right. So Vintage Camper Trailers is kind of, I got to tell you, I'm looking at some of these old units here that are on the Instagram page, and I'm seeing stuff that's from I guess the 50s and 60s, some of these, right?
Yeah, we span mid-century. So the big boom in the trailer industry, if you will, was post-war. And certainly before that time, people were camping, and there was mostly like home built trailers, and some manufacturers, like actually it was called covered wagon, but they weren't just covered wagons.
Right. A little more than that, right?
Yeah, but after the war, you had a surplus of material, aluminum and rivets. You know, Rosie the Riveter is an image that we're all familiar with. People were building things. They were used to building things for the war. And when the war was over in the mid to late 40s, there was this transition of men coming back, being in the workplace, having to produce something, having all this material. And so the camper trailer industry exploded. And so we really focus on that period from the 40s through the 60s. By the time we get into the 70s, you see a lot of the materials start to turn into plastic, and the wood paneling's not being you know, the rich original varnished wood. Now they're using paneling like we all had in the 70s. And so somewhere in the 70s, we kind of cut off. They get to be more boxy, and those trailers that have the eye candy and the appeal to everybody are really that period from the 40s through the 60s.
Yeah, it seems like they were a lot more compact than you might see today, obviously. And you know, but they seem pretty practical. I'm just looking at some of the shots, and they're, you know, they really look like fun things to get away in. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with this, and what was it that, did you have a lifelong interest in these things, or was this something that kind of came along a little later in life?
You know, we got started by accident. So I've had a lifelong interest in hot rods, and many of us, you know, that are in the hobby are car guys and were car guys before we were trailer guys. And so old stuff has always had an appeal to me. But honestly, I don't know if I ever noticed a trailer the day before. I mean, even after we bought ours mainly because I'm cheap. And we had two little kids, and we didn't know what to do with them. We were, you know, had babies, and we thought, well, let's maybe try camping. That would be something we could try. And on the way home from work, there was a little old trailer for $500 on the side of the road. And I bought it, and we had a horrible experience. The first camping trip we went on was literally in a parking lot, and we thought, this is just horrible. If this is what this is all about, this is nuts.
Right.
We live on 10 acres. We could have gone out back and had a better camping experience. So, so anyways, we had this old trailer, and we every time we took it out, people would want to look at it. And I thought, well, how cool would that be to put behind one of my old cars? I'll put my old trailer behind my old car. And honestly, I thought I'd invented like the next new hot thing. I mean, I was all over it, and I thought, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And so I wrote an article for a magazine, a local cruising news magazine here in town.
Yeah.
And people started calling me, telling me they had old trailers. And long story short, we met some people. Those people that we met a dozen years ago have now watched our kids grow up, and still are friends to this day. And we always say that, you know, the trailers are what brought us together, but it's the people that keep bringing us back together. You know, we've just met a family of people over the last about 12 years now that we've been doing this. So how did we get involved? We stumbled in, then we were welcomed in, and now we're welcoming other people into the hobby.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. It's the recurring theme on this show is the community. We always talk about it. It is a family that just, you know, it's almost like, you know, you just add water, instant family kind of thing. And it happens on the road all the time. We hear this repeatedly. It's such a great story. And your story, you know, the fact that it sort of happened just by accident in a way.
Yeah. And a couple of years ago, or it's been a few years now, we wrote a book, and the theme was the people that we had met. And now, several years later, you look back at that book, and, you know, unfortunately, some of those people are divorced, some have died, some have, and we've been through all that with them. And I don't want to get all mushy, because I do, but you know, we don't have a lot of family around here. So our trailer family has become grandparents and aunts and uncles to our kids. It's huge for us. It's really changed our lives for the better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's that's great, and we have heard that, that again, the camping families become extended families. I'm a musician, and my bandmates are also part of my family. Of course, I have my family, of course, my wife and son, but there's other families that are out there, the people you work with too. It's pretty cool. So let me ask you, what are some of your favorite units that you've come across, and maybe you've restored something or whatever it is? Is there one or two in particular that you thought to yourself once acquiring it, wow, this thing's pretty darn cool?
There are so many cool trailers for so many different reasons, and I've cycled through. I've had a lot of big trailers in my collection. I've got a neat old RV right now that was custom built by a guy in the 70s. That's a one of a kind. I've got another trailer that's called a trailer craft, and we've never found another one that's all original from 1948. One of the holy grail trailers is what's called a trolley top. And to this day, literally hundreds of trailers later that I've still never owned a trolley top, and I'm almost over it now, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But
you get a little obsessed, did you?
I've been known to be a little obsessed, and I've got my collection down to about a dozen now, so I'm trying to be good.
Yeah.
There's so many cool ones for so many different reasons. I've kind of drifted back into smaller trailers now mainly because they're easier to store. So I've got a neat little 46 Woody slumber coach teardrop and a crank up trailer called a Rat's Laugh that there's only about 5 of known to exist. And so, I like kind of the different stuff. We do own a Shasta, which is what everybody thinks of a Shasta or an Airstream.
Yep. Absolutely.
Last year, this time last summer, we were touring across the U.S. in a one-of-a-kind gold Airstream that we restored. And it's the only one known to exist. We found it, we restored it, and then we sold it to a collector in Arkansas that has about 80 Airstream trailers stored indoors in a private collection. And he now owns that trailer, and also probably never heard of it, but in the early days, Airstream made a Masonite sided trailer. And we also secured one of those for him, and he now has that in his collection as well. So he's got quite the private collection of Airstreams. So that was kind of a special trailer, something kind of different.
Yeah. I'm looking over at the Instagram page on my monitor here, and I see almost 83,000 followers that you've got. That's extraordinary. Really, that you've got that great a following, and it's awesome. And I mean that extraordinary in the most complimentary way possible. I mean, it makes sense. People are, and I'm one of them. I'm sort of a nostalgia guy. I really love vintage things. I've got old baseball cards, thousands of them, also sitting in the closet over there. And like I said, comic books and music magazines and all kinds. Grew up in the movie theater business, so I have some old posters and memorabilia from my dad's theater. And I just love it, And so I think people just naturally tend to, in some ways, they kind of recapture their childhood when they go back and find these things. Do you find that was somewhat of a connection for you that you had?
I think that there's people like you and I, and then there's all the other weirdos. Some people we tell that we do vintage trailers, and we do a lot. We've written books, we have a magazine, we do events. Right. So it's hard to sum that all up, but we just tell them, we're in the vintage trailer hobby, if you will. And some people look at us cross-eyed, and other people just go, "Oh my God, I've always wanted one of those." And I know you from Facebook, and yada, yada, yada. And so I think there's people that either get it or don't get it.
Yeah.
And, I do think that's what brings us all together is, aside from politics or, whatever it is, religion, whatever it is that we may not agree on,
Right.
we still got this commonality in vintage. And it's not just vintage trailers. It's the cars. I have motorcycles. I have cars. I have trailers. I have, like the posters and we like all of that stuff. And I do think that's what connects us.
Yeah, you're right, and it is sort of unifying when a lot of things aren't unifying, right?
Exactly.
I have the same thing with baseball. You can, even with my dad way back when, we may have disagreed on this, that, and the other, but we always would go back to baseball, and
there you go.
Common ground, right?
Yeah.
So 83,000 followers, nearly almost 83,000 is tremendous, and I'm sure that number is growing every day, and it's just terrific. How is the COVID situation affected you in this time? Like in terms of acquiring things and having to go out and get stuff. Has it made an impact?
Yeah, I mean, we host websites where we sell vintage trailers, and so we're very much with our finger on the trigger of what's selling and what's not, and for the time being, things in the little bit, I always use kind of $12,000 as a cutoff point. We really see that trailers under $12,000 sell pretty quickly, and trailers over $12,000, you really have to market them and stage them and find the right person, and because you're getting into real money, and vintage trailers can easily go. I have one for sale right now that's $30,000, and right before COVID hit, I sold one for $35,000. And so they can certainly get up there in that 30, 40, 50,000 range without trying too hard. And so you're talking about a lot of money in a very, I don't know what the term is, unnerving time or a cautious time that people are, not real eager to spend money or whatnot. But we're seeing the ones in the lower price range still sell pretty quickly off of our websites. Right. The ones in the higher one are taking a little longer and selling a little more sporadically, I would say. But aside from that, the main thing with the current situation is with our events. We do rallies that are 250 trailers, live music, potlucks, lots of group interact. The whole thing is to be there with the group. People dress up in the period and yada yada. And so we did an event in March, which is our early event called Boot Camp, where we teach people how to restore trailers. They come from all over the U.S. for a weekend, and we teach trailer building. And we got that one done, and we got home, and then the COVID thing hit. And so our next two events have been postponed. We've got one coming up in a few weeks that we're still trying to make happen, but it's probably, we're not going to have the band, we're not going to have the potluck, we're not going to have the open house. It's going to be much more camping than our big blowout party rally we usually have. So that's the main effect that it's had, and people are just chomping at the bits to get out. I know.
It's I think we're all feeling it, and we all want to kind of get back out there and interact with each other. Get that human connection we all kind of need. And I know for one with my band, we're all of us are itching to get out there and play again. It's going to be a while, but hopefully sooner than later. Vintage Camper Trailers is the site, and Paul Lacitinola is my guest. And Paul, one last question for you. With these units that you have, all these campers and vintage camper trailers, you ever get a call from TV or film to use them as props, or has that ever occurred? I know you're in California, you're not too close to LA, but has that ever occurred where they say, hey, we need something for a movie or a TV show, it's a period piece from 1966 or something, and we need this kind of trailer?
Yeah, we do. And we've been involved in those, and we've also been involved in just scouting other ones. In fact, we did a Google commercial with one of ours. There's a movie out right now, the the Ford movie with Cobra, the guy
Ford,
that
Ford
Cobra.
versus Ferrari.
Yes, we had that trailer that appeared in that movie on consignment with us, and
right.
and then some friends of ours. We've had lots of friends that have also they had the trailer. I can never. I'm not very good at movie names. I can't think of. But it was a recent one with Pitt and all those guys, and they had a trailer in that. So
right. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're much better at that than I am.
Well, I grew up in the movie theater business, so I'm still.
So that was some friend of ours trailer, and so yes, it's not uncommon for these to be used as props. We even know people down in the LA in the movie business that have prop houses that we camp with, and so that definitely does come into play, and we had a blast. We shot a commercial out on the cliffs overlooking San Francisco with one of our junkiest little trailers at the time. We were surprised that's the one they wanted, but that's what they wanted to do. So
you never know.
You never know.
If they're looking for authenticity, maybe sometimes it's not the prettiest one, but it's
that's kind of what it was. They wanted kind of a hippie out on the beach, and just in his old canned ham, and so it was cool.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, Paul, we really do appreciate your time. This has been very interesting. I've enjoyed it. We'd love to have you back on again, and maybe we'll actually see you. I get a camera going there, and that would be wonderful. But we do appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
My guest is Paul Lacitinola from Vintage Camper Trailers, and you can check them out at vintagecampertrailers.com, the magazine, online presence at Instagram, and you'll find them. They're the source to go to for, guess what? Vintage Camper Trailers. It all makes sense, doesn't it? Of course it does. This is the RV Advisor Podcast. I'm Tom Alexander. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.